It's 1 o'clock. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this next session. I hope everybody was able to get a bit of a quick lunch break in before we start. If you've been around all day, you've seen me already, but I'm Lucy Cox. I'm the chair of the European Marine Board Communication Panel and who are the organisers of this CommOCEAN conference. I'm also the head of communications and public engagement at the National Oceanography Centre in the UK, and I'm being assisted today by my colleague Lauren Noakes, who is a senior communications officer at the NOC. Lauren has her camera on, she'll give you a wave. Just a quick overview, the European Marine Board Communications Panel is made up of communications experts from many of Europe's oceanographic institutes, and it's in place to promote the European Marine Board activities, to synergise outreach activities and to advocate for ocean literacy. During 2020, the EMBCP has been undertaking a survey to establish a baseline of marine science communications across Europe. The results are going to be published in the spring of 2021 as our group's first position paper. A panel of experts made up of scientists, media, educators, businesses and policymakers have been asked for their views on marine science communication, and a second survey of 17 to 18-year-olds is now underway. In addition to this, a survey of EMBCP members is underway to record what skills, provision and funding is in place in our institutes in support of marine science communication. In part one of this session, we'll use some quick polls here on Zoom to broaden out this research with the people here. Please don't worry if you don't know the answers to these questions. We will skip through them relatively quickly. It's just a way of taking it out of the 18 members of the EMBCP and just asking some other people to contribute. And in part two, we'll use an online pinboard and the chat here to discuss what we think the ingredients are for a successful marine science communication. We'll circulate the link to the Padlet on the chat as soon as that session starts, and I'll be sharing it on my screen as well, so don't worry if you don't have it. You don't need to sign in or sign up for a Padlet account to comment, and it's available on your desktop and also as an app as well. So you do have a bit of time to download it if you want to. If you don't sign in for an account, all of the comments will be anonymous. So if you just want to, you can say anything and it won't be attributed to your name. So bear that in mind whether you sign in or not. Just a couple of notes on participation for this workshop session. This is a workshop, and we're trying to put together a recipe. So what we really want to focus in is on what we put in is what we're going to get out. So really, please actively participate in this session through the chat, especially through the Padlet pinboard, and we can raise a hand and talk as well. Hopefully we don't have too many people that we'll be able to just take some comments as we go through. I certainly don't want to be talking for the next hour. So over the next few minutes, I'm going to be just asking you to answer a few questions about your own institutes on a poll. So just bear with me while I swap screens over. Okay. So hopefully you can now all see the first poll question. Can I have a thumbs up from anybody with a camera on? You can't. Oh no, I've got to click a button. Now you can. Thank you. So how many people in your organisation are employed to spend more than 50% of their time on marine science communication? So this only includes researchers if they're specifically employed to undertake marine science communication for over 50% of their time. So this is people who are employed in a communication capacity within your organisation, not people who are employed to undertake research, but who spend a lot of time doing communication. So we're trying to establish what the level of investment in communications is within our organisations. As I say, EMBCP members have already answered these questions, but we're really interested to hear from everybody else. Thank you so much for your participation and putting this in. This is an easy one. They do get slightly harder. We've got a clear kind of. Can you see the polls as they go up? No. Okay. So I'll give it just another minute or so. Clearly, in the lead at the moment is 1 to 5, which is good. I mean, if it's 1, not so good. If it's 5, then that's good. Certainly goes down to left. Really unencouragingly, we've got 21 people saying there is nobody within their institute employed to do marine science communication. So, you know, really good evidence to have. Not massively encouraging to see, but hopefully once we publish these results, we'll be able to kind of put what the position is within this group. So I'm going to end the polling there as it's slowed down, and can you now see the results? Okay, get how this works. Okay, so that's how that one ended. So, question number 2. Concerns what those people within your organisation do. So of the people who are employed within your organisation to do marine science communication, what skills do those people have? Now I've included multi-skilled as the first one. So basically if you have one person and they do everything, please put them down as multi-skilled. If you have people who do different things, so in my team we have a graphic designer, we have a video maker, we don't have a photographer, and there are people who do web design within our organisation as well. Please tick all that apply there. Oh, you haven't seen it. I haven't posted it. Now you can see what I'm talking about. So yeah, please do apply. Tick all that apply there. Lauren, I'm not doing this, but you can if you like. You can put us down. Great, lots of multi-skilling, which I think on the one hand is fantastic. I think we all know that we as communicators can turn our hands to lots and lots of different things. But equally, I think when you are trying to do everything yourself, inevitably either some things get more prominence than others, or perhaps nothing gets done quite as well as you would hope it for to do. So really encouraging to see that we've got quite a few different skills in there as well. Right, I'm going to end it there. Let's slow down. Show results. See that? Okay. Results. Right, question 3 a little bit more difficult, and please don't worry if you can't answer this. I'll share the question. Annually, how much do you think is spent on undertaking marine science communication in your institute? I'm really trying to say staff costs as well as resource costs. So obviously we have a team in the NOC and the staff have a cost, but we also have a budget for doing activities as well. So we have things that we can spend on activities. So I've included both of those things together. Difficult question if you don't deal with the finances, but happy to sort of take a guess, or don't worry about answering if you don't know. But I think most people seem to be, which is fantastic. Definitely a bit of money being spent on marine science communication, which is good, of all those people who are employed in it, and a bit of extra money. So I'm going to end that one there. Share the results. So it came out. So some, not loads. Probably as a percentage of how much funding is coming into organisations into science. And I certainly will be looking to do a bit of a comparison between what they're bringing in for science and what they're spending on marine science communication. So quite interesting. And our last one is, in relation to undertaking marine science communication within your organisation, what would you say are the biggest barriers you face to making communications more effective? And I've given you up to 2 options to try and narrow down what the main barriers we think are. So do you think it's the amount of funding available? Do you think it's the people with the right skills? Do you think it's about you've got the right skills, but you're maybe doing too much? Are you finding any kind of lack of buy-in and support from the leaderships of your organization? And do you find that maybe you don't have the audience, that people aren't interested in what you've got to say? Thank you, Dominique. I've got your very complicated spreadsheet already. I appreciate it's we're such a diverse group as to how we're set up, but really in terms of the proceedings from this conference and this survey, we just want to get sort of nice broad brush out of it. Still a couple more coming in. Okay, I think we're all done. No? Okay. So there were our results. Lack of funding, lack of capacity. We need money and more time. So we probably need money and more people. The more money we've got, the more people we need to spend it. But we're happy for more money and more people, I'm sure, because we've got big ideas. So I think that's certainly the way I feel about it. Okay. So that is the end of our first bit. Let me just double check. Session. Thank you very much for sharing that. Just find my mouse. Okay. So as I say, this will feed into our publication, which is coming out of spring next year, but we also have a proceedings from the conference as well, which it will be included in. So thank you very much for participating in that. So the second part of this, we're going to move our focus from how things are to how we think they should be. So as professional communicators, what do we think goes into making the perfect, effective communications campaign? If money was no object, and we've just, those who were in the show and tell will just heard Lawrence and his amazing ship. So if money was no object, we'd all want one of those, that's for sure. So we're going to use an online pinboard for this part of the session, and Lauren is going to share the link to it now in the chat. As I said, you don't need to sign into an account to use it, and if you aren't signed in, your comments will be anonymous, which is absolutely fine. I'm also going to swap my screen over and share it, so those who don't want to look at it online can just see it on here, and obviously it will instantly upload. So as we discuss what we would like to see in our recipe, we can add to this, and then we can keep the comments going on that as well. So let's share my screen. Lauren posts the link. Okay, so can everybody see our Padlet now? Thank you. So let me just stick the chat on my window so I can see it. Going. Okay. So Lauren and I already had some thoughts, and we've just put down some starters here. Now, these are just our thoughts. And of course, you can comment on them as well. So there are just a couple of areas that we think, if we've got a recipe for marine science communication, photography, one of the big things. So if a picture paints 1,000 words, can we really communicate without them? how important do we think it is? And you'll see, I guess you can't see my mouse moving, but you'll see just under the picture there, you have a little icon which says, currently says 10 out of 10 and 13. So 13 people have found this already, which is great. And we're just asking you to rate these. Now, we ask that you don't just rate them all 10 out of 10, but you try and distinguish between them so that we can come up with maybe some kind of weightings for our ingredients as well. So we might have a lot of something and a pinch of something else to take the analogy through, but absolutely just keep voting on these and keep commenting on as well. We'll certainly be taking all of the comments into account. So if you want to challenge any of these, then do. If you've got extra things that you want to say, then please do. So we've just posed a couple of questions here. So, what are the barriers to getting great photos? The photo we've got here is one of ours. It's a great photo. We're really lucky that somebody sent it to us. Equally, our ships can go off to sea and nobody can send us any photos, which then makes it much more difficult to use photos in our campaigns. So there are some barriers, people taking pictures, berths on our ships for a photographer or a videographer, really difficult to come by. So how, what are barriers that people are finding to it? So brilliant, people are commenting already. So yeah, difficult to get scientists to get good quality photos on our behalf. So those are the kinds of things we think, well, maybe we need training. So just looking through the chat here, Lauren's poised to add some more ingredients to this list. So currently on here, we've got photography, video, the time to do it, which from our previous poll just came up. And one of the other things we have listed here is about accessible language. If we're making science simple, are we dumbing it down or are we opening up? So sometimes we find it's difficult, scientists write their scientific papers, but then when we try and turn them into something that's really accessible, it may be kind of in some people's eyes would dissolve the science, would make it not correct, but actually are we really just opening that up with accessible language? And I think that's one of the things that we need to get better at, I think, as communicators, of making sure that we don't put the jargon in. So does anybody want to suggest a new ingredient? You can use the chat to do that. Lauren and I do have more ideas, and we have pre-prepared answers, but I don't want it to be ours. Humor, infographics. So we will get those on the board. Storyline, yeah, a narrative, content, consistency, telling a story, a compelling story to tell. Illustrations in general, yeah, I think illustrations / infographics are a really important one. So there you see, as if by magic, Lauren's added humour to that. So you can now rate how important you think that is in our recipe, and also comment on it as well. Money, yes, absolutely. Does anybody? I'm quite happy to hand the mic over to anybody who has thoughts on this, and if there's anything that they want to suggest, I can have a little look, and you can put hands up, and you should be able to just expand on your thoughts. Loads of stuff coming in. Does anybody want to talk about any of their suggestions? Loads of comments on these. Thank you so much. Right. Look through. So time. Photos. Has anybody had these problems within their institutes or anything and overcome them in a really, like, in a way that they could talk about? So if you didn't have photography, but now you've got really great photography, can anybody talk about the steps that they took to make that happen? No hands up.
Hi, Lucy. I think the raise hands is not activated, so that's why I couldn't find any way to raise my hands.
Okay.
But maybe if I may, I can just share my experience.
Of course. Yeah.
So, well, I'm working at the European Marine Board Secretariat, and we don't have any specialized officer dedicated to communication. It's something that's it's widespread between the 5 of us. So, you know, we take care of the communication of one single topic. Maybe it's not the most efficient way because, of course, everybody has some specialty. Some people are more Instagram focused, more people on Twitter, and many other differences between different people. But I think when we were discussing who will take care of Twitter, something that really worked out at the beginning, because of course everybody was like, I'm interested, but not willing to take that responsibility on board on top of their daily basis. So what we did is I learned from this example that is apparently the Twitter account of Sweden. You know, the official at Sweden is taken care every week by a different citizen. So people can sign in and they're like, you know, and then you get assigned a week in the year. You know, that person can share anything related to their life, to the daily life in Sweden and so on. So I thought that maybe, you know, if we have this kind of rotation between the members, so it's like a shared responsibility. And then also you see some differences on how we communicate on Twitter and so on. So at least if everybody, you know, took care of 1 week or their social media communication, the Twitter handle and so on, I think for us it worked at the beginning because everybody, you know, had the moral obligation to do something, to dedicate time to it. And also some people got really forward and posted every day, every half day and so on. So I think that's an experience that maybe I can share. That's okay, maybe you don't have the capacity for dedicate a full-time person on Twitter, but at least if you distribute within everybody, then everybody will also have the ownership.
Yeah, I think we've done a couple of times where we've done Twitter takeovers with scientists to sort of spread the load and to get them engaged really. And I think if they're comfortable talking about their own area, then we might be able to get them to broaden it out a little bit. So I think that's really good. Somebody's definitely found the hand up function. So if I ask you to unmute, then, oh, done.
My name is Ingeborg Korme and I work at the JPI Oceans. And we do a bit of science communication, specifically on oceans. We're 3 people in our team, and we're lucky enough to have a person who is works in the Secretariat who has been invited to field work on a boat over Christmas. And so we're also talking about which channels can we use and how can we help her, you know, help us with science communication. And then we are really focusing on some of the things we've been talking about now about narrative and storytelling to make this into very sort of personal expedition, but also really showing what is happening on the boat and what the project is all about while they're out there. And then we're thinking of doing a little bit of an extra spin this year because of COVID. She is probably one of the few people who's allowed to be traveling this December. So, but yeah, this is a very useful tool, this session, before we're going into it.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. So loads of stuff coming in on the chat. I just saw online games there. So I think that's really interesting that, you know, gaming is so big, and I think has gained even more popularity during this year. And it's really interesting I've not done anything myself. I've put a couple of bids in for online game funding, but not got anything. So yeah, that's sounds like a really good one. The easier the better. Yeah, Ali, I don't know whether you put your, oh, I can see you. There you go, I've unmuted you.
Oh, hi there. Sorry, it's me talking again. A quick caveat. I was reminded, I listened to a podcast in the UK not long ago where some fantastic female scientists were talking about being interrupted by men, and it was along the lines of the men sort of saying, please let my loud voice interrupt your expertise. So I apologize that my loud voice is interrupting all of your great expertise. So, but one thing we're lucky enough to have at MCS, and definitely think about it for all of the institutions you're at, we get so many great images and great ideas and fantastic intellectual stuff back from our supporters. And I include, there's so many really great photographers, be they dive photographers, terrestrial based photographers, videographers out there that are in support of, for example, charities or institutions. And we've all heard of citizen science, and that can take lots of guises. That kind of shared experience of everyone feeding into the work that we all need and know needs to be undertaken can be shared around our support, and that does include putting out asks to your supporters or your students, whoever it may be. Can you help us with our image library? Can you, if you know your local dive, your university dive group, can you look to take photographs or videos of this particular environment and things like that? And I know at MCS, Marine Conservation Society in the UK, we get so much fantastic stuff from our supporters and from people that are out there, are at beaches, are going on dives, are involved with seeing plastics come down rivers or whatever it might be. And just to include as part of citizen science, the opportunity to be involved to everyone that supports all of our different organisations here. So it's a bit of a cliche what I've just said, and forgive me for the obvious nature of what I've just said, but don't be afraid to ask for support from your supporters. And that's it. And I was just about to say to Chris Leakey above about sharing this in a public space. I absolutely agree. So I'll be quiet again now and be the loud man being quiet.
That's all right. Thank you very much. Just looking through the chat, support from superiors that communication should focus on newer media than leaflets and similar. Yeah, I think this is one of the ones that Lauren and I had as well, about kind of, we are absolutely at the cutting edge of communications. I know that we all spend a lot of time looking at the new ways to do things, engaging with media, social media, long before other people have ideas. And actually, I think it's really good to get that support of just thinking differently about things. We were hearing earlier about Instagram stories, and I think it's it's not necessarily something that everybody would think of, but it's really good that we would have that kind of support to innovate. This is such an innovative area that we all work in. It's so fast moving. I think that kind of support to innovate is really it's really good. I very much enjoy random bad smartphone pictures on a cheap calendar are not a great way to present your institute. I think we all support that. Let's have a look. Incorporating ocean literacy in school textbooks. Yeah, absolutely. Accessible media, closed captioning, alt text. Yeah, absolutely. Accessibility is something I think we're certainly more and more conscious of. We've changed quite a lot of the way that we do things this year. I think we were closing things down that we really should have been opening up, and so we've had to take a slightly different approach to that. So I think that's really, really important. What was another one that's just gone on there? Recognition. Is good marine science communication recognised equally to good marine science in your organisation? So when we do great bits of marine science communication, do they get the applause that the great science does? Discuss. I'm just going through the chat, loads. How do we measure impact? Measurement, I think, is a really important one. I think that the need, great marine science communication is one thing, but really in our ingredients for our recipe for how to do this, I think that measurement is really, really vital. Measurement will be the difference between getting funded to do something else again or not at all. Proving an impact to people is really, really important. So I think measurement should absolutely go on there, and look, by magic it just appeared. So yeah, really useful to hear your thoughts on whether or not you design measurement at the start of campaigns, how you do it, who you tell your results to, is also really really interesting as well. Maybe it's not about what we want to communicate, but about what people would like to hear. Interesting. So I don't know how we would articulate that as part of a recipe, but I absolutely agree. Sometimes we want to tell people something, but they don't necessarily want to hear it. And do we even ask them what they want? How often do we ask them what they want? So I don't know, maybe for part of our ingredients, it might be something to do with you know, people-centric, or you know, something like that. Partnerships, I've seen come up quite a few times. Partnerships in terms of kind of professional skills that maybe we don't have in-house, but also obviously our reach can also be made much bigger with by working with each other. And it might be that that was, yeah, audience first. So yeah, partnerships I think is definitely one, Lauren. Diversity, inclusion, yeah, absolutely. Maybe if you don't have your hand up function, if you just want to write in the chat that you'd like to speak, and I'll find you and ask you to unmute. If anybody wants to contribute, finding links to people's everyday lives. Yeah, absolutely. One of the first questions we ask our scientists is, how is your research going to impact people? How is it going to touch their lives? And it's not always the easiest way of getting to it. Some areas of science are of course much easier to track back to the impact, but I think it's absolutely important and vital that our communications activities are humanized. Some fantastic comments on these boards, really, really useful. Angel and I will have a fun time going through them all, turning them into the proceedings and feeding into our publication. I knew this group would have something to say on how they wanted things to be. So just yeah, just pop it in the chat if you want to say anything about your experiences about any of these things, or whether you think you've got the perfect setup, or what you've been trying to get and haven't been able to. We will keep this board open as well throughout the conference. It's not going to disappear. So if later on today you have some thoughts and think, oh, I want to make a point about that, then please do just keep adding to it. We probably won't close it down and start looking at the results for a few weeks yet. So please do keep keep adding to it. So how do we reach groups outside of general communication? How to tackle this? This came up at a session earlier about, you know, a lot of what we do is online, and we put things out and we expect people to be on Twitter and on Facebook and Instagram. But what about those who aren't? Obviously, you know, we know face-to-face is incredibly powerful, and I think we've all really missed it this year. But I wonder how we could sort of incorporate more of those who don't go through the new digital channels. How to approach the ego of scientists that would like to be in front of the camera but center of news articles instead of the press relations officer. Ah, okay. So are we saying that we want the press officer in front of the camera? Never become the story, Angel. That's the golden saying. I actually think probably I would say authenticity is a really important thing there, and we often talk about authenticity. I can stand and I can talk about people, but I'm not a scientist. This is not my life. And I think when we do outreach events and I talk to children about science and this, I can do it and they can believe me. But if they would say, well, how did you get into it? How did you? And I'd say, I studied journalism at university. I'm not a scientist. You know, I make the posters I'm stood in front of. So I think there is a bit of a balancing act there that really we want to push them forwards. But equally, I think going back to what we said before about, is science communication recognized within organizations on the same level as science is? So is our great day celebrated in the same way as a scientist's great day? So that was up there as well. Right, Lauren's added authenticity to the top of this as well. Recognition there. Perhaps we need to move from impact factor to real impact on the ground. Yeah, absolutely. You know, the number of people reading a scientific publication is not necessarily the number of people changing their behaviour, is it? So I think the measure of things is quite interesting. And certainly I think we would be looking for the number of people who have changed their habits rather than the number of people who read our article. Time to do proper research first, to identify all stakeholders, make sure we're not replicating something that's already happened and done. Yeah, absolutely. I think especially when we come together in conferences like this, either we're seeing stuff that we think, oh, I could absolutely do that. That's a great idea. I'm going to borrow it. But we also think, hang on a second, we're sort of doing the same thing, and actually maybe we could really amplify the message by doing it. But I absolutely get it. I think it's sometimes we just have to do something and get something out to, you know, to achieve a short-term objective. And it doesn't always give us the time to actually see where our stakeholders are, see what's going on, see what the opportunities really are. So I think time to do research is really important. Open days, yeah. Open days, hands-on activities. Really missed our open day this year. Always a highlight to get people into the institute to see what's going on. Very difficult doing it digitally, and it's definitely not the same. So I think in person, I think if nothing else, we probably would have gone into 2020 thinking we want to do more digital communication. I suspect we're coming out of 2020 thinking we want to do more in person. If anybody thinks otherwise, please do say. This group is being unusually quiet. Angel, you can speak anytime.
Thank you. The perks of being one of the organizers. No, it's just also one of the things that you mentioned, that's, you know, do great examples or successes of marine science communication get the same credit as marine science. And maybe I'll also return it back to say, without marine science communication, you wouldn't know that it's a great marine science project. Because if you have results and then, communicate about it and you tell it to the world, nobody will know that it's a success. So I think maybe it's also try to see if we can also make that kind of narratives to the people, decision makers, saying like, okay, we should really support marine science communication, because otherwise, if one of your scientists wins a Nobel Prize and you don't say about it, it's a little bit like, yeah, you won a Nobel Prize, but nobody knows about it. So it's maybe there could be a way that without marine science communication, there is no successful marine science in a way.
That's quite a statement, but I like it. Somebody's just put, do you think we need to fully understand the scientific part so that we can deliver a clear message and find different ways to pass on the message according to the target public? Absolutely. I didn't start out in marine science at all. I'm a professional communicator. I've moved from industry to industry. I knew nothing about doors and windows when I first started writing about those in my very early career. I think it is really, really important to properly get under the hood of the scientific research that your organisation is doing. I don't think you can just kind of gloss over it. I think it's really important. I think that comes back to that authenticity as well, about who's delivering those messages. I feel like it should be a real partnership between the scientists who are doing the science and the communicators who can find ways to really reach people. I think the best examples of campaigns that we find in our institute is where we work together, where we're really part of those project teams, and where communication is just woven into everything else as well. And that way, I think you do get absolutely the best of both worlds. So if it's not already on there, I would like to put in a ploy for the partnerships to come to external partnerships, but absolutely internal partnerships as well. Okay, oh, that's Lauren. She's been through everything. We will have the chat recorded, Lauren, so we can go back through it and add those this afternoon as well. Like I say, we're not going to close this down. I think it's really important that we have somewhere to put these thoughts. So certainly for the rest of the conference, and really I would say for the rest of the year, we'll leave it live. So do save the link. And if you lose it and you want it, then just let me know. This actually isn't part of the, we haven't put this on the CommOCEAN website. So we're just kind of leaving this as a bit of an internal tool at the moment, but do copy and paste the link, put it somewhere safe. And if you do have thoughts or you want anything to add, you can get in touch with me or Angel through the European Marine Board, and we'll add to this, or you can just continue to add your thoughts over it. So we've got quite a lot more as well. Could we have a final summary with Zoom comments and Padlet comments? Also be great to maintain this interaction through community. Yeah, absolutely. So the output of this, what we will do eventually, probably in the new year, is actually just turn this into an infographic. To turn this into a proper recipe, which is why the grading is really important, because we want to be able to kind of say, how important something is. So this is an important ingredient, but it's not as important as this ingredient. So please do use that rating and not go 10, 10, 10 on absolutely everything. So we've got the proceedings of the conference coming out in, I think we said spring. Yeah, spring. But this in itself will be a product of that, and it will be an infographic. but we'll also obviously be able to keep all the comments and everything that we can have as part of the proceedings. So it doesn't just die here at all. It we'll use it to come. Like I say, it will be used in our as part of our position paper as well from the ENBCP, just to really have that baseline. So this is what the world's marine science communicators think goes into a good communications campaigns. I hope that people will then be able to use it within their own institutes to say, look, this isn't just me saying it. This is all of the attendees of CommOCEAN 2020 who came up with this, and so you really need to kind of take it seriously, and maybe we hope that the proceedings can be quoted in funding applications and stuff like that, just to add a bit of weight to that. So I think we will come towards the end of this session. If nobody has any further questions, that's a long one. Interaction of non-digital traditional generations and the current ones. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, different audiences, different messages, different channels. I think we've got to look really far and wide for reaching everybody. I think that is really important. Yeah. Okay, so if everybody's happy, not one recipe, communications is tailor-made. Absolutely. I think this is this could go on for ages. Yeah, absolutely. It's not just, this is not necessarily a recipe for a single campaign. I think it's a recipe for an approach, really, and all of the things that you need to consider, and all of the provision that you probably want to have to hand to use. Maybe a recipe is the wrong analogy. Maybe there's something else we can say. It's not your recipe, it's your pantry, it's your store cupboard. What do we go back to the beginning? What do we have in our store cupboards? What are all the herbs and spices that we want to have available to us to create all of the many different meals that we need to do? So think of it more like that. So what do we want to have at our fingertips to create everything that we want to create? So please do keep using this. Say, grab the link. We'll go through the chat. Anything that we've missed, we'll add on to it, and please just keep adding. And thank you so much for your enthusiastic participation on this. There is tons and tons to read, which is really, really good. Anything further from you, Angel? Bye. My kitchen basics, yes. That's the one. Thank you, everybody, so much. Have a little break before our final session starts.
Yeah, just to say that the final session will start at 3:30, and we'll have John Clay, which I think when I met him briefly yesterday to test many of the things that I have been here discussing, is he will be able to provide some insight as a video producer and director and so on. So hopefully you will be inspired by that. I put in the chat the link in case you don't have it.
Perfect. Thank you very much.